I stood outside the convention center in Austin, clutching my graduation program with sweaty palms. The May sun beat down on the concrete plaza where families gathered, snapping photos and hugging their graduates. I scanned the crowd for the 10th time in as many minutes, hoping to spot my parents' car pulling into the lot. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. "Sorry, honey. Your mother isn't feeling well. We can't make it today. Congratulations on your degree." I read it 3 times. The words blurred as tears pricked my eyes. My mother had been perfectly fine when I called her 2 days ago. This was about something else entirely. I called him immediately. He picked up on the 4th ring. "Dad, what's really going on? Mom was fine on Tuesday." He sighed, that heavy, disappointed sigh I had heard so many times over the past 4 years. "Anne, we've talked about this. Your mother and I don't support this photography business idea of yours. You graduated with a business degree, and instead of finding a stable corporate job, you're talking about taking pictures for a living." "I've been building my portfolio for 2 years," I said, my voice cracking. "I already have clients. This isn't just a hobby. It's irresponsible. We paid for your education so you could have security, not chase pipe dreams. Your cousin Gregory just got hired at a bank making $60,000 a year. That's the kind of future we wanted for you." I watched other graduates embracing their parents, saw mothers crying happy tears and fathers beaming with pride. My chest felt hollow. "So you're punishing me by missing my graduation?" "We're not punishing you. We're being realistic. When you're ready to take your future seriously, we'll be here. Until then, we think it's best if you figure things out on your own." The call ended. I stood there holding my phone, the graduation program crumpling in my other hand. My roommate Jessica found me sitting on a bench 30 minutes later, still in my cap and gown. She had her parents and younger brother with her, all of them glowing with celebration. "Anne, we've been looking everywhere for you. Come take pictures with us." I forced a smile and posed for photos with her family, pretending everything was fine. Jessica's mother kept asking where my parents were, her voice full of innocent concern. I mumbled something about a family emergency and excused myself as soon as I could. That night, I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling. My phone stayed silent. No congratulations call, no follow-up text, nothing. The message was clear. Choose the safe path they approved of, or lose their support entirely. I thought about Gregory and his bank job. I thought about the corporate cubicles and stable paychecks my parents valued so highly. Then I thought about the shoot I had done last week for a local restaurant. How the owner's face had lit up when she saw the photos of her signature dishes. I thought about the engaged couple who had cried happy tears over their proposal pictures. How they had told me I had captured the most important moment of their lives. I opened my laptop and looked at my business plan, the one I had been working on for 8 months. Austin's creative scene was exploding. Food bloggers, lifestyle influencers, small businesses, they all needed quality photography. I had already saved $4,000 from freelance work. It wasn't much, but it was a start. My parents wanted me to be realistic. Fine. I would show them what realistic looked like. The next morning, I called Dad one more time. "I'm going forward with my business," I told him. "I hope you'll change your mind and support me, but I'm doing this either way." Another sigh. "Then you're on your own, Anne. Don't call asking for money when this falls apart." "I won't." He hung up without saying goodbye. I spent that summer hustling harder than I ever had in my life. I took every photography gig I could find, no matter how small. Birthday parties, pet portraits, real estate listings, menu photography for cafes that could barely afford to pay me. I worked 16-hour days, editing photos until my eyes burned, networking at every local business mixer I could crash. My parents didn't call. Not once. Jessica moved back home to Dallas. I found a cheaper apartment in East Austin, a cramped studio above a vintage clothing store. My new neighbors were artists, musicians, and tech workers, people who understood hustle and ambition. They became my chosen family that first year. By September, I had incorporated my business officially. By December, I had landed my first major client, a boutique hotel downtown that needed a complete photography package for their website and marketing materials. The project paid $12,000. I wanted to call my parents and tell them. I even typed out the text message. But I remembered Dad's dismissive tone, his certainty that I would fail, and I deleted it. Let them wonder. The first year was brutal. I lived on ramen and peanut butter, reinvesting every dollar into equipment and marketing. I bought a professional camera body, 3 quality lenses, lighting equipment, and paid for targeted social media advertising. My Instagram account grew slowly at first, then faster as my work improved and my style became recognizable. Austin's food scene became my specialty. I developed a signature aesthetic. Warm, natural light, close-up shots that made viewers feel like they could reach through their screens and taste the food. Restaurant owners started recommending me to each other. My calendar filled with bookings 3 months out. By the second year, I hired my first assistant, a recent art school graduate named Zoe, who had an eye for composition and boundless energy. We made a good team. She handled the equipment and setup while I focused on the creative direction and client relationships. My parents still hadn't called. I saw updates about them on Facebook through mutual friends. Dad got promoted to regional manager at his accounting firm. Mom joined a book club. They posted photos of family dinners with my aunt and uncle, with Gregory and his new girlfriend. I wasn't in any of the pictures. It was like I had been erased. I told myself it didn't hurt anymore. I told myself I had moved on. But every time I saw those photos, something twisted in my chest. In year 3, everything changed. A food blogger with 2 million followers hired me for a collaboration. She was visiting Austin and wanted professional photos for a series on Texas cuisine. I spent 3 days with her, shooting at 10 different restaurants, from high-end steakhouses to family-owned taco trucks. When she posted the photos, she tagged me in every single one. My Instagram gained 20,000 followers in a week. My website crashed from traffic. My booking calendar filled for the next 6 months within 48 hours. I raised my rates. Then I raised them again. The inquiries kept coming. That fall, I hired 2 more assistants and a part-time business manager named Trevor, who handled scheduling and invoicing. I moved my operation into a small office space with a studio setup. My cramped apartment days were over. I found a 1-bedroom place in a modern building with actual amenities like a gym and a pool. I still thought about my parents sometimes. I wondered if they had seen my growing success, if they ever looked at my Instagram account, if they felt any regret about cutting me off. But I never reached out. The wound had scarred over, and I had learned to live with it. Year 4 brought even more growth. A lifestyle magazine based in New York featured my work in an article about emerging food photographers. Major brands started approaching me for campaigns. I shot for a national coffee chain, a frozen food company launching a premium line, and a celebrity chef opening a restaurant in downtown Austin. My revenue hit $400,000 that year. After paying my team and expenses, I took home more than Gregory made at his bank job. Much more. I bought myself a luxury watch to celebrate, a sleek silver piece I had been eyeing for months. Every time I checked the time, I thought about Dad telling me I was being irresponsible, about Mom's silent disappointment. The watch became my reminder of how far I had come without their support. Year 5 was when I started looking at real estate. Austin's housing market was competitive, but I had saved aggressively, living below my means despite my growing income. I wanted something that felt like proof, like tangible evidence that I had built something real. I found the house in February. It was in Westlake Hills, a neighborhood I had driven through countless times while imagining what it would be like to live there. The house was modern, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, with a view of the hills and a backyard perfect for entertaining. It had 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a chef's kitchen with professional appliances, and a separate studio space I could use for editing and small shoots. The price was $2 million. I made an offer the same day I toured it. The sellers accepted within 12 hours. Standing in the empty living room after closing, I felt surreal. This was mine. I had done this. Not with my parents' help, not with anyone's approval, but with my own vision and relentless work. I spent March furnishing the place. I hired an interior designer who understood my aesthetic. Warm minimalism with pops of color, comfortable but elevated. We filled the space with mid-century modern furniture, original art from local Austin artists, and a dining table that could seat 12 people. The kitchen became my favorite room. Marble countertops, a massive island, top-of-the-line appliances. I had gone from eating ramen in a studio apartment to owning a kitchen that professional chefs would envy. When everything was finished, I did something impulsive. I posted a photo of the house on Instagram. The shot showed the living room at golden hour, light streaming through those massive windows, highlighting the carefully curated furniture and the view of the hills beyond. I kept the caption simple. 5 years of dreams and hustle. Home. The post exploded. Thousands of likes within hours. Hundreds of comments congratulating me, asking about the interior design, wanting to know my success story. My followers had watched my journey, had seen me grow from scrappy solo photographer to established business owner. They celebrated with me. I didn't expect my father to see it. I had stopped thinking about whether my parents paid attention to my life years ago. But 2 days after I posted the photo, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Anne, your mother and I saw your new home. It's beautiful. We'd love to reconnect. It's been too long. Maybe we could meet for dinner. Bring your investors too. We'd love to meet the people who believed in you." I stared at the message for a long time. Investors. He thought I had investors. He thought someone else had funded my success, that I couldn't possibly have achieved this on my own. 5 years of silence, and this was what brought them back. Not pride in my accomplishments, not regret for missing my graduation, not curiosity about my life, just the sight of wealth and the assumption that someone else must have been responsible for it. Something cold settled in my stomach. I read the text again, parsing every word. They wanted to reconnect now that I had visible, undeniable success, now that I had something they valued. I thought about that day outside the convention center, about sitting alone on the bench in my cap and gown. I thought about the hundreds of times I had wanted to call them over the past 5 years, to share my victories and struggles, only to remember that they had made their choice. I typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. Finally, I wrote back, "Sure, dinner sounds nice. How about Saturday at 7 p.m.? I'll make reservations." "Perfect," Dad replied immediately. "Your mother is so excited. See you then, honey." Honey. The casual endearment felt like acid. I made a reservation at Juniper, one of Austin's most acclaimed restaurants, the kind of place that required booking weeks in advance. I happened to know the owner. I had photographed their seasonal menu launch last fall. One phone call secured me a prime table. Then I sat down and started planning. If my parents wanted to reconnect, I would give them exactly what they asked for. The week leading up to dinner crawled by. I went through my normal routine, client shoots, team meetings, editing sessions. But my mind kept drifting back to that text message. I must have read it 100 times, each reading revealing new layers of presumption and entitlement. Bring your investors, too. They really believed I hadn't done this alone. They believed so completely in my inability to succeed that they had invented an alternative explanation, one that fit their narrative better. I told Zoe about the dinner on Wednesday. We were packing up equipment after shooting a brunch menu for a new cafe in South Congress. "Wait, your parents who ghosted you for 5 years want to suddenly play happy family?" She shook her head. "That's messed up, Anne." "It gets better," I said. "They want to meet my investors." "Your what? You bootstrapped everything. You didn't have investors." "Exactly." Understanding dawned on her face. "Oh, "Oh, this is going to be good, isn't it?" I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I'm still deciding exactly how good. That evening, I called Trevor. He had been with me for 3 years and understood the business inside and out. More importantly, he had a background in finance before switching to arts management. He knew how to talk numbers. "I need a favor," I told him. "A weird one." "Weird how?" I explained the situation. My parents, the years of silence, the assumption about investors, the upcoming dinner. Trevor was quiet for a moment. "You want to teach them a lesson. I want them to understand what they walked away from, what they missed, who I became without them. What do you need me to do?" "Come to dinner on Saturday. Pretend to be my business partner. Let them believe whatever they want to believe, and then help me show them the truth." "I'm in," he said without hesitation. "Those people deserve whatever's coming to them." The next few days, Trevor and I prepared. We reviewed financial statements, growth projections, client testimonials. We talked through my journey, making sure he knew every significant milestone. He already knew most of it from working with me, but we refined the narrative, made sure every detail was crisp. I also called in another favor. Jordan, the owner of Juniper, was someone I had worked with multiple times over the years. We had become genuine friends through our collaborations. "I need the private dining room on Saturday," I told her over coffee on Thursday. "And I need your discretion." "The plot thickens," Jordan said, leaning forward. "Tell me everything." I gave her the condensed version. Her expression shifted from curiosity to anger on my behalf. "Your parents sound like real pieces of work," she said. "The private room is yours. What else do you need?" "I'll let you know Saturday morning. I'm still finalizing the plan." Saturday arrived with perfect spring weather. I spent the morning at a spa, getting my hair done, my nails manicured, preparing like I was going into battle. Because in a way, I was. I chose my outfit carefully, a tailored navy blazer over a silk blouse, fitted pants, and those expensive heels I had bought last month. The luxury watch gleamed on my wrist. I looked successful, polished, exactly like someone who had exceeded every expectation. Trevor met me at the restaurant at 6:30. He wore a sharp charcoal suit and carried a leather portfolio. He looked every bit the successful business partner. "Ready?" he asked. "Not even a little bit," I admitted. "But let's do this anyway." We went inside. Jordan greeted us personally, her expression sympathetic. She led us to the private dining room, a beautiful space with a single long table, ambient lighting, and windows overlooking the downtown skyline. "I've arranged everything you requested," she said quietly. "My staff knows to be discreet. You just give the signal when you're ready." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." She squeezed my hand. "Give them hell, Anne." Trevor and I sat down. He arranged papers from his portfolio on the table, making it look like we had been discussing business. The performance was beginning. At 7 p.m. exactly, the hostess brought my parents to the private dining room. I stood to greet them, my heart hammering against my ribs. 5 years had changed them, added gray to Dad's hair and lines around Mom's eyes. They looked older, smaller somehow than I remembered. Mom's face broke into a wide smile, the kind she usually reserved for church friends and book club members. "Anne, oh my goodness, sweetheart, look at you." She moved in for a hug. I allowed it, standing stiff in her embrace. She smelled the same, like the lavender lotion she had worn forever. The familiarity of it made my throat tight. Dad shook my hand, then seemed to reconsider and pulled me into an awkward hug as well. "You look wonderful, honey. So professional." "Thank you," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "This is Trevor, my business partner." Trevor stood and shook hands with both of them, his smile warm and genuine. He was already in character, playing the role perfectly. "Business partner," Dad repeated, shooting a knowing look at Mom. "So you did bring your investor." "Actually," Trevor said smoothly, "I came on board 3 years ago. By that point, Anne had already built the foundation herself. I just helped manage the operational side." We all sat down. A server appeared with menus and water glasses. My parents were looking around the private dining room with barely concealed assessment, calculating the cost of everything they saw. "This is quite the place," Dad said. "Very impressive." "The owner is a friend," I said. "I've done several shoots for her restaurant." Mom's hand flew to her chest. "Oh, you're still doing photography? I thought maybe you had moved into something more stable by now." The words hung in the air. Trevor's eyebrows rose slightly, but he stayed silent, letting me handle it. "Photography is my business," I said evenly. "It's what built everything you saw in that Instagram post." Of course, Dad said quickly, waving his hand. "We just meant, with your business degree, we thought you might have expanded into other ventures, diversified." "The business is quite diversified," Trevor interjected. "We handle commercial photography, brand campaigns, social media content creation, licensing deals. It's a full-service creative agency at this point." He was embellishing slightly, making it sound bigger than it was, and I appreciated the support. My parents nodded along, impressed by the corporate terminology. The server took our orders. Dad and Mom both chose the most expensive entrees on the menu, I noticed. They ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. When the server left, Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. "We've missed you so much, sweetheart. It's been too long." I looked at her hand on mine, at her manicured nails and the diamond ring Dad had given her for their 30th anniversary. 5 years, and she still wore it on the same finger. "You could have called," I said quietly. "Any time in the past 5 years, you could have picked up the phone." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Dad cleared his throat. "We thought we were doing the right thing," he said, "giving you space to figure things out. We didn't want to enable irresponsibility." "Irresponsibility," I repeated. "You have to understand our position," Mom added. "We wanted you to have security, a real career. We were protecting you from making a huge mistake." Trevor shifted in his seat, and I could sense his anger on my behalf. I put my hand on the table, a subtle signal for him to let me handle this. "A mistake," I said, keeping my voice level. "Is that what you call it now?" Dad leaned back in his chair, adopting the authoritative posture I remembered from childhood lectures. "Anne, we're not here to rehash the past. We're here to reconnect, to move forward. You've clearly done well for yourself, and we're proud of you." "Proud." The word tasted bitter. "You're proud now." "We always wanted the best for you," Mom said, her voice taking on that injured tone she used when she felt attacked. "Everything we did was out of love." The wine arrived, providing a convenient interruption. Dad made a show of tasting it and approving it, playing the sophisticated patriarch. He poured glasses for everyone, lifting his in a toast. "To family," he said, "and to new beginnings." I didn't lift my glass. Trevor followed my lead, leaving his wine untouched on the table. The toast hung awkwardly in the air before Dad lowered his glass, his smile faltering. "Anne, come on. We're trying here." "Are you?" I asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you only decided to try after you saw I had money." Mom's face flushed. "That's not fair. We saw your beautiful home and realized how much time had passed. It made us reflect on what we'd been missing." "What you'd been missing," I repeated. "Not who. What?" "Honey, you're being dramatic," Dad said, his patience wearing thin. I recognized that edge in his voice. "We made a parenting decision 5 years ago that you disagreed with. That's all. Now you've proven yourself, And we're here to celebrate that with you. Can't we just enjoy this dinner? Trevor finally spoke up, his voice cool. I'm curious about something. When Anne was building her business from nothing, working 16-hour days, living in a studio apartment and eating ramen to afford camera equipment, where were you then? Dad bristled. That's really none of your concern. This is a family matter. I disagree, Trevor said calmly. Anne is my business partner and my friend. Her success is very much my concern, and I'm wondering what kind of parents abandon their daughter right when she needs support most, then show up years later asking to meet her investors. We didn't abandon anyone, Mom said sharply. We gave her space to grow up and take responsibility for her choices. Is that what you call refusing to answer her calls? Trevor asked. Missing every holiday, every birthday, every milestone? Because from what Anne told me, she tried to reach out dozens of times that first year. You chose not to respond. I hadn't told Trevor that part. I hadn't told anyone that part. But he knew me well enough to guess. And he was right. The color drained from Mom's face. We thought it was best to maintain boundaries until you were ready to be realistic about your future. I was realistic, I said, my voice rising despite my attempts to stay calm. I had a business plan. I had clients. I was making money from the start. You just couldn't accept that it wasn't the kind of future you had imagined for me. Dad set down his wine glass with too much force. You were 22 years old, talking about becoming a photographer. Do you have any idea how many people fail at creative careers? We were protecting you from wasting your life. Instead, you wasted 5 years of our relationship, I said. 5 years I can never get back. Graduations, achievements, struggles, growth. You missed all of it. By choice. The appetizers arrived, breaking the tension temporarily. The server must have sensed the atmosphere because she set down the plates quickly and disappeared. None of us touched our food. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. We thought we were doing the right thing. You have to forgive us for that. Do I? I asked. Do I have to forgive you for missing my graduation? For never asking how I was doing when I was struggling? For ghosting me so completely that I had to find out about Gregory's engagement through Facebook? Gregory's engaged? The question slipped out before Mom could stop herself, revealing that she hadn't actually told me about it deliberately. For 6 months now, I said. But you knew that. You just didn't think I deserved to know. I wasn't part of the family anymore, remember? Dad pushed his appetizer plate aside. This isn't productive. We came here to reconnect, not to argue about the past. The past is the only reason we're here, I said. You want to reconnect now because you think I have investors, because you think I have money, because my success finally fits the narrative you can accept. You couldn't be proud of me when I was scrappy and hustling. You can only be proud now that I have the visible markers of success you understand. That's not true, Mom protested weakly. Isn't it? Tell me, Mom. When was the last time you looked at my Instagram before you saw that house photo? When was the last time you Googled my business name to see how I was doing? She said nothing, confirming what I already knew. Trevor cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Anne built something remarkable. Her revenue last year was nearly $500,000. She employs 5 people. She's worked with national brands and celebrities. Major publications have featured her work. She did all of that without a single dollar of outside investment, without any family support, completely on her own. I watched my parents process this information. Dad's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, calculation, and finally, something that looked like greedy interest. 500,000, he repeated. That's impressive, very impressive. You know, honey, with that kind of revenue, you should really be thinking about proper financial planning, tax optimization, investment strategies. I could introduce you to some people. And there it was. The real reason for this reunion dinner. Not reconciliation. Opportunity. I have a financial advisor, I said coldly, and an accountant. I'm all set. Of course, Dad said quickly. I just meant family should look out for each other. Now that we're reconnecting, maybe there are ways we can help each other. Help each other, I echoed. Like you helped me 5 years ago? Mom's tears were flowing freely now, but they looked performative, calculated to evoke sympathy. Why are you being so cruel? We made a mistake, yes, but we're here now. We're trying to make amends. Can't you see that? What I see, I said carefully, is 2 people who cut off their daughter for pursuing her dreams, who stayed silent for 5 years while she built a business from scratch, and who suddenly want back into her life now that there's money involved. What I see is opportunism dressed up as parental concern. The main courses arrived. The server set down beautifully plated dishes that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget 5 years ago. The food looked exquisite, and I had no appetite for any of it. We ate in tense silence for several minutes. I could feel my parents' discomfort, their realization that this dinner wasn't going the way they had imagined. They had expected a grateful daughter, thrilled to have her parents back. They had expected to be welcomed with open arms and probably, knowing Dad, to be asked for advice on managing my newfound wealth. They hadn't expected questions. They hadn't expected accountability. Dad tried again. Anne, I understand you're angry. That's fair. But holding on to anger isn't healthy. Your mother and I are offering an olive branch here. We want to be part of your life again. Why? I asked bluntly. Give me one reason that isn't about money. They exchanged glances, and in that moment of silent communication, I saw everything I needed to see. They couldn't think of one. They literally could not articulate a single reason for wanting me back in their lives that wasn't connected to my financial success. Trevor shook his head slowly, his disgust evident. Unbelievable. We raised you, Mom finally said. We gave you life, paid for your education, supported you for 22 years. Doesn't that count for something? It counted for something 5 years ago, I said. It counted when I needed you. But you made it very clear that your support was conditional. You would only stand by me if I lived the life you wanted me to live. The moment I chose my own path, I was dead to you. That's an exaggeration, Dad said. Is it? You didn't come to my graduation. You didn't call on my birthday for 5 years. 5 years, Dad. You sent a text saying I was on my own, and you meant it. Until you saw that house. The private dining room felt smaller now, the air thick with unspoken accusations and defended positions. I watched my parents struggle to maintain their composure, to keep up the pretense that this was a normal family reunion. Dad tried a different approach, softening his voice. Look, maybe we handled things poorly. Maybe we should have stayed in touch even while we disagreed with your choices. But we're here now, and that should mean something. It does mean something, I agreed. It means you're exactly who I thought you were. Mom set down her fork with a sharp clink. You know what? Maybe we did make mistakes, but you're not exactly innocent here. You could have been more understanding of our concerns. You could have compromised, found a more stable career path, and kept photography as a hobby. But no, you had to be stubborn, had to prove something. This is partially your fault, too. I felt Trevor tense beside me, preparing to jump to my defense, but I held up a hand. This moment, this reveal of their true feelings, was exactly what I needed. My fault, I said softly. For dreaming too big. For wanting to build something meaningful instead of settling for someone else's definition of success. For not being Gregory with his bank job and his safe, predictable life. Gregory has a good life, Dad said defensively. He's engaged, buying a house, saving for retirement. He's doing everything right. And I'm doing everything wrong, even though I make more than he does, own a $2 million house outright, and built a thriving business. Even now, with all the proof of my success, you still can't fully accept it, can you? You still wish I had chosen differently. The truth of my words hung in the air. Neither of them denied it. We just want you to be happy, Mom said, but the words sounded hollow. No, I corrected her. You want me to be what makes you happy. There's a difference. Trevor leaned forward, addressing my parents directly. I've worked with Anne for 3 years. I've watched her build something from nothing, seen her talent and work ethic firsthand. She's one of the most successful young entrepreneurs I know, and you two almost destroyed her. Destroyed her, Dad scoffed. She's clearly fine. She's fine because she's incredibly resilient, Trevor said. But those first 2 years, she cried herself to sleep more nights than she'd probably admit. She worked herself to exhaustion trying to prove she wasn't the failure you convinced her she was. She isolated herself emotionally because she was terrified of being abandoned again if she let anyone too close. I felt my cheeks burning. Trevor was sharing things I had told him in confidence during late-night editing sessions when exhaustion had loosened my carefully maintained walls. But I didn't stop him. My parents needed to hear it. We didn't know, Mom whispered. You didn't want to know, I said. That's different. You chose not to be there for any of it. And now you want to waltz back into my life and pretend the past 5 years didn't happen? It doesn't work like that. Dad's expression hardened. So what? You invited us here just to throw our mistakes in our faces? To humiliate us? That's pretty petty, Anne. Petty? I repeated, feeling something crack open inside me. You think this is petty? You abandoned me at the most vulnerable point in my life. You missed my graduation, my first big client, the day I signed the lease on my first office. You weren't there when I broke my wrist shooting in the rain and had to finish the job anyway because I couldn't afford to lose the client. You weren't there when my business hit 6 figures, or when I bought my first new car, or when a magazine called me one of Austin's most promising young photographers. You missed everything, Dad. Everything that mattered. And you did it deliberately, to teach me a lesson. My voice had risen, and I forced myself to take a breath, to regain control. So yes, I invited you here tonight, but not to reconnect, not to forgive and forget and play happy family. I invited you here because you asked to meet my investors, and I thought you deserved to meet the only investor who ever believed in me. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Trevor stood as well, backing my play without knowing exactly where I was going with it. The only investor in my business was me, I said, my voice steady now, clear and strong. Every dollar that built what I have came from my own work. I saved $4,000 from freelance jobs before I even graduated. I lived on practically nothing for 2 years so I could buy equipment. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I taught myself business management, marketing, financial planning. I made every mistake you can make and learned from all of them. I built this entirely alone because you left me no choice. Mom was crying again, but this time the tears looked real, shocked, and painful. I am my own investor, I continued. I bet on myself when no one else would. And I won. That house you saw on Instagram? I bought it with cash I earned myself. This watch? I held up my wrist. Paid for with money from my largest campaign last year. Everything I have, everything I am, I built from the ground up without a single cent or word of encouragement from either of you. Anne, Dad started, but I wasn't finished. You texted me asking to bring my investors because you couldn't conceive that I might have done this alone. You needed there to be someone else, some outside force that explained my success. Because the alternative, that I succeeded despite you, that I was right and you were wrong, was too much for your egos to handle. I walked to the door of the private dining room and opened it. Jordan was standing nearby as we had arranged, and she nodded to me. So here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to my parents. You're going to finish your expensive dinner that I'm paying for, even though you don't deserve it. You're going to think about what I've said, and then you're going to leave, and you're not going to contact me again unless you can offer me a real, genuine apology that acknowledges exactly what you did and why it was wrong. You can't just dismiss us like this, Dad said, standing up himself now, his face red. We're your parents. You stopped being my parents when you told me I was on my own, I said. You don't get to claim that title now that it's convenient. Trevor moved to my side, presenting a united front. I think it's time we go, Anne. Wait, Mom said, standing as well. Please, honey, don't leave like this. We can talk about this. We can work through it. There's nothing to work through, I said. You made your choice 5 years ago. You chose your pride and your narrow definition of success over your daughter. You chose conditional love over unconditional support. And now you have to live with the consequences of that choice, which is that you missed out on watching me become someone worth knowing. I started to leave, then paused, turning back one more time. Oh, and one more thing. That text you sent asking to meet for dinner? You said Mom was excited to reconnect. But when I called that day 5 years ago, when I begged Dad to tell me why you weren't coming to my graduation, you told me Mom wasn't feeling well. You lied then, and you're lying now. Mom was never sick. You just couldn't admit that you were punishing me for not being who you wanted me to be. Mom's face crumpled completely. How did you... I'm not stupid, I said quietly. I never was. You just treated me like I was because my dreams didn't match yours. Trevor and I walked out of the private dining room together. The main restaurant was bustling with Saturday night energy, couples and families enjoying their meals, completely unaware of the confrontation that had just unfolded. Jordan caught my eye from across the room and made her way over to us. You okay? She asked quietly. I will be, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. She handed me a small envelope. No charge for tonight. Consider it my contribution to justice. I tried to protest, but she waved me off. Please. After what you just told me about them, letting them eat free at my restaurant would have killed me. At least this way, you get something out of dealing with them. I hugged her, grateful for friends who showed up when it mattered. Trevor and I walked out into the warm Austin night. The city was alive around us. Music drifting from nearby bars, people laughing on patios, the endless energy that made Austin feel like home. That was intense, Trevor said. You okay? I don't know yet, I admitted. Ask me tomorrow. He nodded, understanding. For what it's worth, you were magnificent in there. They deserved every word. Did they deserve me being that harsh? Anne, they ghosted you for 5 years. 5 years. And then they only came back because they saw money. Yeah, they deserved it. Maybe even worse. We walked in silence for a few moments. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. Are you going to check that? Trevor asked. If it's them, I don't want to read it right now. If it's not them, it can wait. But curiosity got the better of me a few minutes later. I pulled out my phone to find 3 text messages. The first was from Dad. You embarrassed us in front of your business partner. That was completely uncalled for. We came here in good faith and you attacked us. We deserved better than that. The second was from Mom. I'm sorry we hurt you. I didn't realize how deep it went. But what you said tonight was cruel. We're your parents. We'll always love you, even when you're being difficult. The third was from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, Anne. This is Gregory. Aunt Helen just called my mom crying about dinner tonight. I don't know the whole story, but I wanted you to know that I always thought it was messed up how they treated you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Also, congratulations on your success. I've been following your Instagram for years. Your work is incredible. I showed Trevor the messages. He read them, his expression darkening with each one. Your father thinks he deserved better? Trevor said incredulously. And your mother is calling you difficult? They learned absolutely nothing. Did you expect them to? I asked. No, he admitted. But I hoped. For your sake, I hoped. Gregory's message was the only one I responded to. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate you reaching out. Let's get coffee sometime. The other two, I deleted without responding. Trevor drove me home. My beautiful, expensive home that I had earned without them. We sat in his car in my driveway for a few minutes, neither of us quite ready to end the evening. What happens now? He asked. Now I move forward, I said. Same as I've been doing for 5 years. They made their choice, I made mine. The difference is, I can live with mine. You know they're going to try again, right? People like that don't give up easily. Maybe. But I'm not the scared 22-year-old they remember. I know my worth now, with or without their approval. Trevor smiled. Damn right you do. I got out of the car and walked up to my front door, my heels clicking on the stone walkway. The house was dark inside, waiting for me. I turned on the lights and stood in my living room, the space I had designed and furnished and claimed as mine. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dad. You owe us an apology for tonight. When you're ready to act like an adult, we can try this again. I blocked the number. Then I blocked Mom's too. There was a freedom in that action, a finality that felt both terrifying and liberating. I had spent 5 years with a small secret hope that they would realize their mistake, that they would come back and be proud of me. Tonight had killed that hope completely, but in its place was something stronger. Certainty. I didn't need their approval. I never had. The house felt peaceful around me. I walked through it, room by room, remembering the journey that had brought me here. The studio apartment where I had edited photos on a second-hand laptop. The office space where I had hired my first assistant. The countless shoots, the late nights, the moments of doubt and triumph. All of it had been mine. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back patio, looking out at the hills. The Austin skyline glowed in the distance, a city full of dreamers and hustlers and people building impossible things. I had found my place here, built my life here, became myself here. My phone buzzed one more time. Gregory again. Just so you know, I told my parents what Aunt Helen said about dinner. They're on your side. My mom said if your parents can't see how amazing you are, that's their loss. Family dinner is at our place next Sunday if you want to come. No pressure, though. I smiled at the message. Maybe some family was worth reconnecting with. I responded, I'd like that. Thank you. The night air was perfect, that ideal Texas temperature where you could sit outside without being too hot or too cold. I thought about the girl I had been 5 years ago, standing outside that convention center alone. I wished I could tell her that it would be okay, that the pain of that moment would transform into something valuable, that being cut loose would force her to become someone she never could have been with the safety net of parental approval. But maybe she wouldn't have believed me. Maybe she needed to walk the path herself, just like I had. My business phone rang. It was after 10 p.m. on a Saturday, unusual for a work call, but I answered anyway. Anne, it's Victoria Chambers from Lifestyle Magazine. I know it's late, but I just got your submission photos for the Texas feature, and I had to call. These are extraordinary. We want to do a full spread, 6 pages. And we'd like to do a profile piece on you as well, about your journey building your business. Would you be interested? I looked out at the skyline, at the city that had given me everything when my family had given me nothing. Yes, I said. I'd be very interested. We talked for 20 minutes about the details, the timeline, the story they wanted to tell. A profile piece in a major national magazine. the kind of exposure that would take my business to the next level. When I hung up, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of the evening. The confrontation with my parents, the pain of their continued selfishness, and the sweet victory of proving them wrong in the most absolute way possible. They had wanted to reconnect to access my success, to benefit from what I had built. Instead, they had been forced to confront exactly what their rejection had cost them: a relationship with someone who had accomplished everything they claimed was impossible. I raised my wine glass to the empty night sky. To dreaming too big, I said to no one, and to proving them all wrong. The week after the dinner, I threw myself into work with renewed focus. The confrontation had left me feeling raw, but also strangely energized, like I had finally closed a door that had been left ajar for too long. Victoria's call about the magazine profile gave me something concrete to focus on, instead of dwelling on my parents' messages. I hadn't heard from them since I blocked their numbers, but Gregory kept me updated through occasional texts. Apparently, they were telling everyone in the family that I had been disrespectful and ungrateful, that they had tried to reconnect, and I had thrown it back in their faces. The narrative was predictable. They were the victims, wronged by their ungrateful daughter. Aunt Helen is telling people you've changed, that success went to your head. Gregory texted me on Tuesday. Just thought you should know what they're saying. I appreciated the warning, but I didn't let it bother me. Let them spin whatever story they needed to tell themselves. The people who mattered knew the truth. The magazine interview was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Victoria arrived at my office with a photographer and a recording device, ready to capture my story. She was in her 40s, sharply dressed, with an intensity that suggested she took her work seriously. "I've been following your career for about a year," she said as we settled into my office. "Your style is distinctive, and your growth trajectory is remarkable. But what really caught my attention was your story. Self-funded, no investors, built from scratch in a competitive market. That's rare." "It didn't feel rare at the time," I said. "It just felt like the only option." "Tell me about the beginning. What made you decide to pursue photography as a business?" I talked her through my journey, from my college realization that photography was more than a hobby to the decision to start my business immediately after graduation. I was careful with my words, not wanting to sound bitter or damaged, but also not willing to sugarcoat the challenges. "My family didn't support the decision," I said carefully. "They wanted me to take a more traditional corporate path. When I chose not to, they withdrew their support completely." "How completely?" I paused, considering how much to share. But this was the point of the profile, wasn't it? To tell the real story, not a sanitized version. They didn't come to my graduation. They told me I was on my own, and they meant it. We didn't speak for 5 years. Victoria's eyes widened. 5 years? That's significant. It was, I agreed. But it also forced me to rely entirely on myself. I couldn't fall back on family connections or ask for loans or use any kind of safety net. I had to make it work, or I had nothing. Some might say that kind of pressure could have destroyed you. It almost did a few times, but it also made me sharper, more resilient. I learned to make decisions quickly, to trust my instincts, to push through fear and doubt. I don't know if I would have developed those skills if I'd had an easier path. We talked for 2 hours. Victoria asked about my creative process, my business strategy, my plans for growth. She asked about the challenges of being a young woman in a competitive industry, about imposter syndrome and self-doubt, and the moments when I had almost given up. "What kept you going during the hardest times?" she asked. I thought about those first 2 years, the nights when I had cried myself to sleep in my tiny apartment, wondering if my parents had been right all along. "Spite, honestly," I said with a laugh. I was so determined to prove them wrong. And then somewhere along the way, it stopped being about them and started being about me. I realized I was building something I was genuinely proud of, something that mattered regardless of who was watching. "And your family? Have you reconnected?" "They reached out recently," I said, choosing my words carefully. But it became clear pretty quickly that they were more interested in my success than in actually rebuilding our relationship. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. Victoria nodded, understanding. That must be painful. It was. But I've made peace with it. You can't force people to see your worth, and you can't make them regret choices they're not sorry for. All you can do is keep moving forward and build a life that fulfills you, with or without their approval. The photographer took shots of me in my office, at my desk, reviewing photos on my computer. He captured the space I had created, the team working in the background, the evidence of a thriving business. These photos would accompany the profile, showing readers exactly what I had built. After they left, I sat alone in my office, feeling emotionally drained but satisfied. The interview had forced me to articulate things I had barely acknowledged to myself, to own my story in a way I hadn't before. Zoe poked her head in. How did it go? Good, I think. Exhausting, but good. Want to grab dinner? You look like you could use a break. We went to a casual taco place near the office. Nothing fancy, just good food and easy conversation. Zoe had become more than an assistant over the past 3 years. She was a genuine friend, someone who had been there for the middle part of my journey. Can I ask you something? She said between bites of her fish taco. The dinner with your parents last week. Do you regret how it went down? I considered the question honestly. No. I regret that it had to happen at all, that they couldn't just be genuine. But I don't regret calling them out. They needed to hear it, even if they didn't accept it. Have they tried to contact you again? Not directly. I blocked their numbers. But according to my cousin, they're playing the victim to the rest of the family. Of course they are, Zoe said, rolling her eyes. Because admitting they were wrong would require actual self-reflection. Exactly. Well, for what it's worth, I think you handled it perfectly. They showed up expecting you to be grateful, and instead got a reality check. That's poetic justice. I smiled. Trevor called it karma. Trevor's not wrong. We finished dinner and headed back to our respective homes. I spent the evening editing photos from a shoot earlier in the week, losing myself in the work that had saved me 5 years ago and continued to ground me now. Around 10 p.m., my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the unexpected visitor made me nervous. I checked the security camera app on my phone and felt my stomach drop. Mom stood on my doorstep, alone, looking small and tired under my porch light. I debated not answering, pretending I wasn't home, but curiosity won out. I opened the door but didn't invite her inside. Hi, honey, she said quietly. Can we talk? How did you get past the gate? My neighborhood had security, requiring a code or resident permission to enter. I told the guard I was your mother and that it was an emergency. Please, Anne, just give me 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into my living room, taking in the space with wide eyes, seeing in person what she had only glimpsed through Instagram photos. Your home is beautiful, she said. Thank you. You have 5 minutes. She flinched at the coldness in my voice but pressed on. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For the way we handled things 5 years ago. For missing your graduation. For not being there when you needed us. Your father doesn't agree with me being here, but I had to come. I had to tell you I'm sorry. Okay, I said, crossing my arms. You've told me. Is that all? Anne, please. I know we hurt you. I know we can't take it back. But we're still your parents. That has to mean something. Why does it have to mean something? Because of biology? Because you raised me for 18 years? That doesn't give you a free pass for the next 5. Tears welled in her eyes. I miss my daughter. I miss you. Can't we find a way past this? What changed? I asked. Between the dinner on Saturday and now, what actually changed? Are you sorry you cut me off? Or are you sorry it backfired? Mom sat down on my couch without being invited, her shoulders slumping. She looked older than she had at the restaurant, more fragile. Part of me felt sympathy. Most of me felt numb. I've been thinking about what you said at dinner, she began. About how we treated you, about the lies we told. Your father is convinced you were just being dramatic, but I can't stop thinking about it. About you, alone at your graduation. About all the times over the years when I wanted to reach out but didn't, because your father said we needed to stay strong, maintain our boundaries. You could have called anyway, I pointed out. You're not a child. You have your own phone, your own choices. I know. And that's on me. I let him make decisions for both of us when it came to you, and that was wrong. I should have been stronger. I should have fought for our relationship. I sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. Why didn't you? She was quiet for a long moment, her hands twisting in her lap. Because part of me agreed with him. Not about cutting you off completely, but about being worried. You were so young, so idealistic. Photography seemed like such a risky choice. We had friends whose kids had tried creative careers and ended up broke, living in their parents' basements at 30. We didn't want that for you. So you chose no relationship over a relationship where I might struggle. We thought tough love would work. We thought if we withdrew support, you'd realize you needed a backup plan, something stable. We never imagined you'd actually succeed the way you have. That's the problem, Mom. You never believed in me. You never thought I could do it. And when I proved you wrong, instead of being happy about it, you just tried to find other explanations. Investors, business partners, anything but the possibility that I was capable all along. She wiped at her eyes. You're right. We didn't believe in you, and we should have. We should have trusted that we raised someone smart and capable enough to make her own decisions. But you didn't trust me. You trusted your fear more than you trusted me. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Anne. The apology sounded genuine, more real than anything she had said at the restaurant. But I had learned over the past 5 years that sorry wasn't always enough. What do you want from me? I asked. Forgiveness? Reconciliation? What would that even look like? I don't know, she admitted. I just know I want my daughter back. I want to know you, the person you've become. I want to be part of your life again. But I'm not the daughter you remember. I'm not the girl who left your house 5 years ago. That person had to die for me to survive. The Anne you knew was terrified of disappointing you, of not being enough. She made herself small to fit into your expectations. I can't be her again. I don't want you to be her, Mom said quickly. I want to know who you are now. Do you? Because the person I am now is someone who built a business you didn't believe in. Someone who chose risk over safety, who made unconventional choices, who doesn't fit into your nice, neat boxes. If you couldn't accept that Anne 5 years ago, why would you accept her now? Because I was wrong, she said simply. I was wrong about what you needed, wrong about what would make you happy, wrong about what you were capable of. I'm trying to admit that. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or performance. But she looked genuinely distressed, genuinely remorseful. It would have been easier if she was still being defensive. Where's Dad in all this? I asked. Why isn't he here with you? She looked down at her hands. He's angry about what happened at dinner. He thinks you ambushed us, set us up for humiliation. He's not ready to apologize. Because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. He thinks we made a reasonable parenting decision that you're blowing out of proportion. Missing my graduation is out of proportion? I know, she said miserably. I've told him that. We've been fighting about it all week. He keeps saying we're the victims here, that you're being ungrateful and disrespectful. But I can't shake what you said about me being sick that day. You were right. I wasn't sick. We just didn't want to go, and we lied about it. That's inexcusable. At least she could admit that much. So what now? You apologize and we're supposed to go back to being mother and daughter like nothing happened? No. I know it's not that simple. But maybe we could start somewhere. Coffee or lunch. Small steps. Let me get to know you again, and you can decide if you want me in your life. And Dad? He'll come around eventually. Or he won't. But I'm not going to let his pride cost me my daughter anymore. The words sounded good, but I had learned to be cautious about words without action backing them up. I need time to think about this, I said. This isn't something I can decide right now. I understand. Take all the time you need. She stood up, gathering her purse. Can I ask you something before I go? What? That house photo you posted on Instagram. Was that deliberate? Did you post it knowing we'd see it? I considered lying, but what was the point? Yes. I knew you followed my account even though you never liked or commented. I wanted you to see what I'd accomplished. I wanted you to know what you'd missed. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. We both do. And for what it's worth, I've looked at every photo you've posted for 5 years. I've watched you grow and succeed. And I've been proud even though I had no right to be. I just wasn't brave enough to tell you. She walked to the door, then turned back. Your father asked me to find out about your investors. He wanted names, contact information. He's already thinking about business opportunities, about ways to leverage your connections. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know who he is. And you should know that I'm not here for that. I'm just here for you. After she left, I stood in my living room for a long time, processing the conversation. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to think that maybe she had actually learned something. But I had been disappointed too many times to trust easily. I called Trevor. My mom just showed up at my house. What? How did she even get in? Lied to the gate guard about an emergency. I filled him in on the conversation. Do you believe her? He asked when I finished. I don't know. She seemed genuine. But seeming genuine and being genuine are different things. What does your gut tell you? I thought about it. My gut says she's sorry we're not close anymore, but I'm not sure she's sorry for the right reasons. She's sorry it turned out badly for her, not necessarily sorry for what she did to me. That's a pretty important distinction. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Nothing, for now. I told her I need time to think. And I do. This isn't a decision I can make when I'm still angry and hurt. Fair enough. Just don't let her guilt you into anything. You don't owe her forgiveness just because she showed up. After we hung up, I made myself tea and sat on my back patio again, looking out at the view that had started this whole mess. If I hadn't posted that photo, my parents never would have reached out. I would have continued building my life without them, and maybe that would have been easier. But maybe I needed this confrontation. Maybe I needed to face them and say all the things I had swallowed for 5 years. Maybe I needed to see that even with an apology, some relationships couldn't be what they once were. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, assuming it was Dad from a different phone. But curiosity won out. Hi, Anne. This is Patricia from Austin Business Journal. We heard about your upcoming lifestyle magazine feature and would love to do a local piece on your business growth. Would you be interested in an interview? I smiled despite my emotional exhaustion. This was what mattered. The work, the growth, the continued success. Everything else was just noise. I responded, Yes, I'd be very interested. Let's schedule something for next week. The business I had built was solid, real, undeniable. It existed independently of my parents' approval or disapproval. That was the victory that mattered, more than any confrontation or apology. The next morning, I woke up to find 3 missed calls from Dad's office number and 2 voicemails. I listened to them over coffee. The first was civil, asking me to call him back to discuss family matters. The second was less civil, accusing me of turning Mom against him and demanding that I stop manipulating the situation. I deleted both and blocked the office number too. The lifestyle magazine feature came out 3 weeks later. 6 glossy pages showcasing my work, my office, my team, and my story. The profile piece was titled, "Building Dreams: How Anne Created a Photography Empire from Scratch," and it didn't pull punches about my family situation. Victoria had written, "Anne's journey is remarkable not just for her creative talent, but for her resilience in the face of complete familial rejection. When her parents withdrew support at graduation, threatening her with isolation if she pursued her passion, she chose passion. The result is a thriving business that grossed nearly $500,000 last year, employing 5 people and working with national brands. It's a testament to what's possible when belief in yourself is stronger than the need for approval." The article went viral online within hours of publication. My Instagram gained 50,000 followers in 2 days. My email inbox filled with interview requests, speaking engagement offers, and inquiries from potential clients. The Austin Business Journal piece came out the following week, adding local fuel to the national fire. My phone rang constantly. Zoe fielded most of the calls, but some I took myself. A podcast about entrepreneurship, a speaking slot at a women in business conference, a potential collaboration with a major camera equipment brand. The attention was overwhelming but also validating. My story resonated with people. I received hundreds of messages from strangers telling me about their own difficult family situations, their own choices between approval and authenticity. I had become, without intending to, a symbol of something larger than myself. Gregory texted me. "Saw the magazine article. It's everywhere. Aunt Helen is losing her mind. She's telling everyone the article is full of lies and that you made them sound worse than they are. My mom told her to stop embarrassing herself." I appreciated the updates, but felt oddly detached from my parents' reactions. They had become characters in a story, rather than active participants in my life. Mom tried to call several times from different numbers before I finally answered. "Anne, we need to talk about this article," she said, her voice tight with anger and barely controlled panic. "What about it?" "You made us look terrible. Everyone we know has read it or heard about it. People at church are asking questions. Your father's colleagues have mentioned it. This is humiliating for us." "It's the truth," I said calmly. "I didn't make you look like anything. I just told the reporter what happened. You could have been more discreet. You could have said we had a disagreement without going into such specific detail about everything. Why would I protect you? You didn't protect me when I needed it most." She was silent for a moment, and I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. "Your father wants to sue the magazine for defamation. He's already contacted a lawyer." I laughed, actually laughed. "Sue them for what? Printing facts? Good luck with that. Every word in that article is true, and you know it. Anne, please. Can't you ask them to take it down? To issue a retraction? This is destroying our reputation in the community." "No. And even if I wanted to, I couldn't. It's published. It's out there. The only thing a retraction would do is draw more attention to it and make things worse for you." "So you're just going to let us be dragged through the mud publicly like this?" "You dragged yourselves through the mud 5 years ago when you made your choices. I just documented what happened. If you don't like how it looks in print, maybe that should tell you something about your behavior." "I came to your house," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I apologized. I tried to make things right with you. And you repaid me by humiliating us publicly in a national magazine? The article was written before you came to my house. The interview happened before your apology. And honestly, Mom, nothing in that article is worse than what you actually did to me. If anything, Victoria was kind in how she presented the situation. Your father is furious with you. He's saying he never wants to speak to you again after this betrayal." "Then I guess we're even now," I said, and ended the call. I blocked that number too. The media attention continued for another week, before gradually dying down to a manageable level. But the impact on my business was undeniable and lasting. I booked out for the next year within a month of the article's publication. I had to hire 2 more assistants just to handle the volume of inquiries flooding in. My rates tripled, and clients still lined up eagerly to work with me. I moved my business into a larger office space, a converted warehouse in East Austin with high ceilings, natural light pouring through massive windows, and room for a full production studio. It was the kind of space I had dreamed about in those early days of working from my cramped apartment, editing photos on a secondhand laptop. The grand opening of the new office was a celebration with my team, local business partners, and friends who had supported me. No family members were invited except Gregory and his fiancée. I didn't need my parents there to validate what I had built. The space itself was validation enough. Jordan from Juniper catered the event with an incredible spread of her signature dishes. Trevor gave a heartfelt speech about resilience and self-belief that brought several people to tears. Zoe presented me with a gift from the team, a framed print of that first major client photo from 5 years ago, the hotel project that had given me my first real break. "To remind you how far you've come," she said, hugging me tightly. I hung it in my private office, a reminder that every journey starts somewhere small and uncertain. Gregory showed up with Sophie, his warm and genuine fiancée who immediately made me feel welcome in their circle. "The rest of the family sends their congratulations," he said. "Well, most of them anyway. Aunt Helen and Uncle Roger are still in denial about the whole situation and defending your parents." "Let them stay there in their delusion," I said. "I'm done caring what they think." As the party wound down and guests began to leave, I stood in my new office, looking out at the space I had created through sheer determination. 5 years ago, I had been alone at my graduation, convinced I had lost everything that mattered. Now I was surrounded by people who had chosen to be in my life, who supported me without conditions or caveats or expectations. My parents had wanted me to bring my investors to dinner that night. They had wanted to meet the people who had believed in me when they refused to. Looking around the room at my team, my friends, the business partners and clients who had trusted me with their brands and their visions, I realized I had brought my investors after all. Every person in this room had invested something valuable in me: their time, their trust, their belief, their energy. They were the ones who had built this with me, who had shown up when it mattered. And my parents had missed all of it by their own stubborn choice. 3 months after the magazine article exploded into public consciousness, I received a letter in the mail. Not a text or email, but an actual handwritten letter on my parents' formal stationery. It was from Dad, his precise handwriting filling 2 full pages. The letter was formal, stilted, clearly written and rewritten multiple times based on the careful perfection of every word. He didn't apologize directly, but acknowledged that they had handled things poorly, and that perhaps they had been too harsh in their expectations and too rigid in their approach. He said they were proud of my success and hoped that someday I might be willing to have a relationship with them again, once emotions had settled and cooler heads could prevail. There was no real acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, no genuine taking of responsibility for their actions. It was the letter of someone who wanted reconciliation without accountability, forgiveness without actually admitting fault. I read it twice, looking for any sign of authentic remorse or understanding. Finding none, I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. I had built a life without them. I had created success on my own terms, in my own way, and while part of me would always grieve the parents I had wished I had, the ones who would have believed in me from the start, I was completely done chasing their approval or waiting for them to change. My business continued to grow beyond even my ambitious projections. The brand partnerships became more prestigious, the clients more high-profile and demanding. I was invited to speak at conferences and universities across the country, sharing my story with young entrepreneurs and creatives who needed to hear that success without family support was not only possible, but could make you stronger. At one speaking engagement at a university in Houston, a young woman approached me afterward with tears streaming down her face. "My parents think I'm wasting my time and their money with my fashion design degree," she said, her voice shaking. "They want me to quit and get what they call a real job. Your story gave me hope that I can make it work anyway, that I'm not crazy for believing in myself." "You can make it work," I told her firmly, taking her hands in mine. "It won't be easy, and there will be moments when you doubt yourself and wonder if they were right. But if you want it badly enough, if you're willing to work harder than you ever thought possible and push through the fear, you can build something real and meaningful." She hugged me tightly, thanking me over and over for the encouragement. And in that moment, standing in that university auditorium, I understood with perfect clarity why the article and my story had resonated so deeply with so many people. There were thousands of people out there choosing their dreams over their family's approval, feeling alone and scared and uncertain about the future. If my story could help even one of them keep going, keep believing, keep working toward their vision, then everything I had been through had meaning beyond my own personal success. The consequences for my parents unfolded slowly but inevitably over the following months. The magazine article had reached their church community, Dad's workplace, and their entire carefully cultivated social circle. Friends began distancing themselves gradually, unwilling to associate with people who had treated their own daughter with such coldness. Dad was passed over for a significant promotion he had been expecting and openly discussing, with his supervisor citing vague character concerns that had been raised by several colleagues who had read the article. Mom was quietly asked to step down from her position on the church volunteer board after several members expressed discomfort with her continued leadership role. Their reputation in the community they had spent decades building crumbled as people reconsidered what they thought they knew about them and found them wanting. Even Gregory's parents stopped inviting them to family gatherings, embarrassed by their behavior and unwilling to subject me to their presence now that I had reconnected with the extended family and become a welcomed part of those celebrations. They had traded their daughter for their pride and their rigid expectations, and ended up losing both along with the respect of everyone around them. I built something better than revenge. I built a life so full and successful and meaningful that their absence simply didn't matter anymore. My team became my chosen family. My work became my legacy and my joy. And every single day, I woke up in my beautiful home that I had earned, went to my thriving business that I had built, and lived the life I had chosen over their approval. Sometimes late at night when I couldn't sleep, I thought about that scared girl standing outside the convention center 5 years ago, alone and heartbroken, and I wished I could travel back in time to tell her that the pain would transform into power, that being cut loose would force her to learn to fly higher than she ever could have with their safety net. The revenge wasn't in the confrontation at that dinner, or even in the magazine article that exposed their behavior. The revenge was in becoming someone so remarkable, so successful, so genuinely happy, that they would spend the rest of their lives wondering what might have been if they had just believed in me from the start, if they had chosen love over control.